tell where you're calling in from and
There we
maybe
go.
what machine you're working on? Hey, there we can hear you.
How we doing?
Awesome, Keith.
Good. How about you guys?
Great.
Good.
Nice and cold.
You guys are out in your shop. It's a little too cold up here to be out in mine. We're in Pennsylvania. I know it ain't that far north, but it got cold.
Yeah.
And you have snow, right, Skip?
Yeah,
What's that?
I got snow here.
Light snow.
Yeah. We had about 3 inches of slush, but but we had to get it up fast because overnight and all during today, I don't think we're getting above 25. So it's ice out there. So I had to clear that walkway. It's warmer in my shop than it is outside.
Keith, remind us where you're calling in from or where you're located.
Yeah, this is Cape Cod, Massachusetts.
Okay. So you're the farthest north maybe right now?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
I like to just say Cape Cod because I don't want to associate to Massachusetts.
Very cool. And what machine, Keith, have you been primarily working on?
I'm working on my router build, which is actually started out quite a few years ago as a X carb that I've modified, and recently I haven't turned a chip on it yet, but I picked up an Outback CNC larger table. Now I have a radial guide and lead screws versus the belts and the rollers, and I'm running a 3-phase water cooled spindle, and actually I kind of just gonna get it right on down here, and let's see if I can get this camera. There we go. This kind of gives you a view of my new setup and everything. And of course, well, I've built my controllers and everything else from many years ago to run the original machine. And the latest thing I've done is I finally picked up the DB25 connector here to run over and then connect into my Mach Automate system. Now today I'm being delivered from you guys the new computer that I'll be able to put in here, and I'll be able to change over this power supply. And then on my controllers right here, I hooked in a wire, but I'm going to run a DIN rail here and then take my negatives and tie those all together and kind of play around with that. So I have a lot to do still to get here, but I have been changing over my lead shire here, and the latest thing is I made sure I had the e-stop boxed over and everything else so that I wasn't getting any false sense of operation on that, and just kind of plugging away on that and double checking on all my settings and things like that on there. So I have a long way to go, but it's been a process leading up to this point of education on myself, because you can see in the back of my shop, I'm all conventional. I've been conventional since I started my career 51 years ago in the naval shipyards. And so I'm loving changing over. I've had some help on getting where I'm at now. And I'm probably going to be closing my shop at the end of the year here because I've actually been diagnosed with CLL. But I feel healthy as a horse right now, and getting this running is one of my priorities, just so I can do that check off there. And
Wow.
so I'm in the game like everybody else, and that I wish I've grown through the greatest timeline in history anybody could live through, I believe, and I hope there's plenty more youngsters to come up. They have wide open, endless capabilities, and connecting with the youth, just like the veterans connected with me when I started. I hope it happens. So, that's where I'm at.
Well, thank you for your influence and encouragement in the space. That I'm sorry to hear that, Keith, but
yeah, it's all. I'm not doing it for anything other than just letting everybody know, where I I mean it's mind-boggling when you first hear it, but I can't shortcut or change or wish I had anything different in life. And I loved every day that I'm in the shop. In fact, it doesn't even seem like I work. I'm here to help other people and then have fun along the way. So that's it. Oh, God bless everybody that makes it through the same thing that I have right now. And I would not know I have it other than the blood test diagnosis for right now. So, I could go a long time. My dad went another 15 years. So, hey, I might as well.
Wow. Well, welcome everybody. We're so glad you're here. We've got the MachLabs development team. I'm Carl. I'll just go around real quickly. We got Graham here, Andy is the CTO. We've got Todd, and then Paul is one of our support team members. So you've talked with some of us, but we appreciate you guys so much and just the influence you've had over CNC and your partnership. I mean, for many of you, it's been years that we've worked together with Mach, and we're just excited to get to see you face to face as a team. Excited to answer any questions and really learn from you guys of where you want to see, like from your perspective, where do we go from here? And like, what are the biggest gaps that you're seeing? What are the biggest strengths that you're seeing? All of the above. So thank you for joining. I think if it's okay, we'll spend just another minute going around for each team member and for each person here, and maybe just share where you're calling from, what machine you're working on, and then we'll jump into questions. I will say this meeting is being recorded, but yeah, who wants to? Kate, thank you for that introduction. Who wants to go next?
I can go. I built a GAT in CNC. Oh, let me see, probably about 6 years ago. And I had a full working machine before this all started. And then I was like debating whether I wanted to do this or not. And it was like, oh, what the heck? I'll go ahead and try it. Well, the main problem I had was integrating. I had to run it on pokies, integrating my pokies to run on the M31. And it would run fine when I started it up and moved all the axes and everything. But then as soon as I would go to run a file, everything would just stop working. So I ended up finally, it's funny, I ended up finally buying some just knockoff drivers and got everything back up and running. And then I see this message from you guys. Hey, you want to, try the pokies thing again for me? And I'm like, not really. But I did start putting pokies board together. I got everything mounted just temporary. And then I got some of the wiring done. It's not ready to go yet, but I'm going to try running it. Just put the adapter board onto my table and try running it with that board on. But that's where I'm at. I haven't run a file with it yet. I got some files I started putting together to run on it. And then you hit me with this, so I started working on that instead of trying to run anything yet. But it does function. I did run the birdhouse. You guys know, you guys took that file and played with it and couldn't get it to mess up, I guess. But where was I at? Sorry, old age.
Well, thanks, Kid. Yeah, I appreciate all your testing and your feedback. We've talked quite a bit, and I appreciate it.
Yes, we did. I'm ready to try out the rotary. I built this thing. I put that rotary table on, and I have never used it. So
Okay.
it's going to be fun when I do get a chance to use it. And what I originally wanted to do was make like wooden rifle stocks, and I thought that would be great to be able to do it, totally, instead of having to do it two-sided.
Mm-hmm.
But haven't got there.
Very cool. Well, Trent, can you hear us now? Yay. Do you want to do an intro? You're muted at the moment. You're muted and yeah, you just unmute. There you go. Now we can hear you.
Okay. Trent, as you noted, I'm out of Utah County, Utah. I have been in CNC about 13 or 14 years. Started with Mach3. Machine is a home built. Actually, it's my second home built. It's actually based on a Avid CNC approach. Most of my motors and stuff, cables, all come from Avid CNC. So I'll call it an Avid CNC clone. About a 4x4 footprint. I do have a rotary axis. So I've been doing this, 12, 13 years. I'm currently running on a Pokies 57 CNC. Have been for quite a while. You and I, Carl, have been chatting off and on, so I kind of know my situation. But I'm still trying to get back up and running. PC I had some earth ground issues, so I'm in the process of rebuilding a PC. Got all my parts in last night, so hopefully in the next day or two I'll be up and running again. Had a disaster last week. Rerouted all my cables and pinched my coolant hose. So I started a job to test and coolant everywhere. So I actually got to redo my spoil board as well because it got soaked. So yeah, I'm excited to be here and contribute and hopefully learn a lot from the team.
Well, thank you, Trent. Awesome. Johannes, thanks for joining. Would you want to intro? You're muted right now. Yeah, there should be a mute.
Yep,
But here we go.
I saw it now.
Can you-
Sorry, had assumed I wasn't muted. Hi, everybody. I'm the odd one out calling from southern Germany. I kind of started out probably like 8 or 9 years ago with one of those cheap Chinese mini mills, basically like a toy going with the 3D printer.
Yeah.
And then decided wanted to go in a little deeper and bought it's probably the equivalent of a Grizzly CNC controlled mill from an estate sale. And that came with a computer with Mach3 loaded. So that's what got me hooked and
Yeah.
started with that and eventually upgraded to Mach4 and did quite a bit of odds and things to the machine. And in parallel was interested in Linux CNC for the EtherCAD part using Beckhoff components. That's what I have been keeping you guys on your toes a little bit with, and actually have that Chinese little thingy used with the Linux CNC, which is probably a crazy thing. Like you have really rotten mechanics and a high-end control on the other end. So that's something that I'm interested in here. And I'm also interested in actually doing the programming part. So I've been running a couple of different servos and spindles with my own code using Modbus control in literally variants of Chinese Stepper Online. I don't know if that's a brand name in the US. They're quite familiar and seen a lot around here in Europe. And getting these to work is kind of difficult between not having all the documentation and not knowing Mach well enough in certain places. So that's been a challenge, and probably if I have questions later, they may relate to some of that.
Very cool. Well, thank you for joining. Appreciate it. Chad, thanks for joining. Do you want to share where you're calling from and what machine you're working on? No mic. Okay, that's great. You can, you can chat. You can send a message through chat and we'll see it. A lot of machines using Mach4. Let's see here. All right. Well, thank you guys. Maybe we'll just start out with kind of, I mean, I know we're all at different stages. The EtherCAD stuff, we definitely are slowly integrating different EtherCAD devices on the M31. And so I know it's a process for all of us, but love to see just like from your perspective, what are the biggest limitations or like concerns that you have with the new platform? Like obviously, maybe before we do that, why don't we just share a little bit more into kind of the difference between Mach Pro and Mach 4, like, because it's not a complete rewrite, but just explain kind of what the continuation is there.
Yeah, so I would say I would say we started working. So we started a company, Mach Motion, and we were using Mach 4 software. We started, running Mach 4 in the early 2013s, I'd say. Right around there is when I really started working with Brian and Steve on it. And we made our own interface, and we ran that interface for probably 4 years. I'm thinking around 2018 is when we came out with kind of the new layout that we have been running since then. We called it our 2000 series control. And so at that time, as Mach Motion, we were building a control, which was an industrial PC, had an operator panel, had pendants and everything with it. And we were working in the retrofit space. And so we developed, we were retrofitting primarily milling machines at that time. So knee mills, VMCs, a lot of lathes, and we got pretty big into plasma too for a time there. And so basically Mach Motion, we loved Mach 4 as the core platform. We really didn't like the interface at that point. And so we developed we had installers that were in the field all the time, installing our retrofit kits. And so we would build electrical enclosures here, we'd build the controls, and then we would have a team go in the field and install all that on the machine. And so you would take a machine that, a lot of them were US branded machines, the iron was good, the electronics failed on it, and we would double the life of that machine. Through that, what our installer team did not have was any programming skills. Like they were good electrical, good mechanical, and not good at programming. So we began to build more and more into like no code solutions so that our install team could do tool changers and all of these things without ever writing any code. And that kind of set us on about a 10-year deal of just developing more and more. And we got it to where we go in and we do Como routers, multi-spindle, we do, large on-threads, all of these different machines, water jets, and the guys never write a line of code on site. All the we would build in every feature that every machine needed, so we could turn them on and off and essentially just walk in. They would kind of show up on Monday, tear off all of the old stuff, leaving the mechanics of the machine, but motors upward would come off. We would put a new electrical cabinet on, new drives and motors. We did Yaskawa primarily through all of that, Yaskawa spindles and Yaskawa servo drives. And by the end of the week, so we come in on Monday, by Friday, they're cutting production. And we did this, we still do it. That is what Mach Motion still does. During that whole time, we worked very closely. I worked in development here with Steve Murphy and Brian, and, we were, I would say, their #1 beta tester team. And so we were always running the, very latest code and giving feedback and just perfecting kind of the core of Mach. So through that, we built an interface that I think is quite flexible without having to do, without having to program anything. I think we do about 100 retrofits a year, a little bit over that, but right around there. And so we've been into a lot of facilities and a lot of machines, and made, whether it's M codes, like the whole thing, everything you need to retrofit a machine and get it back to running OEM spec, essentially. That was our goal. So back about 2 or 3 years ago, I think it was about 3 years ago, Brian started talking about, he wanted to move on, do something else. We've had a great relationship with Brian, and he really was like, I really want you guys to run the company. I just want to go do something else, but I don't want it to die. I want it to continue on. And so we started working on negotiations, and we purchased Artsoft, and through that, there's a, it depends on where you look, but basically we thought the smartest thing would be to kind of rebrand the product, to give it some new life. And through that, we took everything we've done at MachMotion. So, if we're talking about a water jet, all the little things about garnet, whether you have a stepper motor feeding the garnet, like all of those little details are the things that we built into these different machine types. And we took everything we developed on MachMotion side, and we put it into what we're calling Mach Pro. Under the cover, at the base layer, there wasn't a lot of change in the Mach core. Like if we look at versus Mach3 to Mach4, total rewrite of the software practically. Like they're not built on the same framework. It is a total start over. Mach4 to Mach Pro is really it's a whole system. The core is quite similar. There have been lots of additions to support what MachMotion was doing and basically take what we did and be able to bring it to the world. So we made, this last year, we've made thousands of changes of taking things that were like just for MachMotion and like, how can we make this so that everybody can use this and it not be just a MachMotion thing? And so with that, there was a lot of collaboration with Steve and our team working together on the same source code to kind of bring this product together. But Mach Pro is a user interface along with tool changer functionality and lots of M-code support. And essentially everything you need, we think, for a lot of machines without doing any coding, you can install Mach Pro on a machine and get every feature up and running. So tool setters, and there's just a lot of integration at a fine detail layer. Through all of that, there are what we call hook scripts, and there are thousands of them. And essentially, if there is some stage in a tool change where you do have something custom that we haven't accounted for, and almost every sequence of all of our stuff, you can write a little chunk of Lua code that will get fired every time that sequence happens. So you can take a whole tool change routine and you can insert one little thing. Oh, you need this cover that we didn't account for at this one stage. And you can insert, 10 lines of code. And now you have customized the tool changer, but you've only written a couple lines of code and it gets run with everything else. It still does all of the alarm management. It does all the other tracking, everything else. So you don't have to deviate from it's not an all or nothing situation. It is, you can take what we have as a base and you can add on layers and overwrite, parts of our tool change and things like that. So Mach Pro, we are, I don't know where things are going to flush out entirely long-term for customizing every part of it, but I'll show you, if you guys have done much editing the screens or anything like this, we have a lot of, the screen interface here is dynamic. So most people, when they're used to like a Mach4 interface, you either have 4 axes or whatever, but the interface is pretty set. What we have done is I can go into configure here. And this dialog has been, the layouts been redone because we added more things. But I'm just going to show you just one example. If I enable this A-axis here, it's got a motor map to it. And we've got the video in front of that. Let me just move this over here. We'll just hit apply. Apply, okay. It will, now we've got a U-axis showing up here. So in that dialog, I had an option of saying whether this is a rotary or a linear. If I said it's a rotary, this would have said an A-axis. So throughout our screen on every page where we show, the U-axis appear here for our fixture offsets all the way through the software. So our interface is not just static. the reason why I bring that up is like you guys can build your own interfaces. We haven't taken the ability away for you to do that. But if you want to run the Mach3 interface, there are certain areas that if you customize, as soon as you come out of config, it might like shift your thing over or whatever, because there's a lot of dynamic fields in this screen. One of the major new additions that I would say is super powerful is that when I looked at most of the custom screens out there, what they were custom for is to add more axes or take away axes, and they were to add buttons and things like that. We came up with this concept of, we call them dashboards. And so you have a dashboard, and within a dashboard, you have widgets. And so this is one of the big additions to Mach3. This area right here is a dashboard embedded into the screen. It's a plugin panel. If you guys know how to edit Mach screens, use the screen editor. And if I click in here, I can configure this widget, and I can remap any of these buttons to what we call
0xy. That's a common request that I think I need to add on the default screen. Most people don't like to zero all axes, but 0xy will just. So this button was set to 0 all, and instead of 0 all, we're going to select 0xy, hit save, and now this button will zero the X and Y axes. That was very interesting. That isn't, I agree. I can rename though any of these buttons, so I can click on configure button and I can change the button color. Each command has an on and off state, and so the buttons will automatically change state if the button has feedback. So zeroing doesn't have feedback, but something like going to part 0 could have feedback, depending on which ones we select. This would be your like viewing machine coordinates versus viewing part coordinates. And so these buttons are configurable. MDI and this button are the only two in this list that are not configurable. This is always your MDI button. But if we look over on this left-hand side or this right-hand side, this whole panel is a dashboard. And so the other big change is we are including Macro B into Mach3 for everyone.
And for clarity, every Mach industrial feature that was normally held back is included in the same Mach3 interface. So you've got all the Mach industrial, Mach4 industrial, plus all the new additions as the one version moves forward.
So I don't know if any of you guys have gotten to Macro B, but Macro B is essentially a programming language within G-code. And you can make your own cycles. You can do a lot of really cool things with it. In the FANUC world, it is very, very prevalent and very, very popular. A lot of people write a lot of Macro B, subroutines, and I mean, they call them macros. Basically, they call the nomenclature is if you call it a macro, that means that you're doing probably math in it and routines like that. If you call it a subroutine, normally it's just a dumb routine. So they call them subroutines and macros. But let's say I wanted to show some pound variables on the screen for doing Macro B. I can add another row, which added this new field down here. I could move this up. So I'm going to put it right between the jogging and the function button widget. And I'm going to pick pound variables, hit save. Now I've got a pound variable widget here with nothing in it. And I'm going to configure this widget. And we're going to add pound variable 500, which is kind of the start, to 502. That is your 500s of the base where they're saved. So they will be persistent when you restart the software. So now we've got 3 pound variables on the screen, and I could reference those pound variables in my G code. And let's say I made a little routine where this pound variable 500 was actually the height of the part. So I can rename this part height. And now it shows on the screen as part height. I can type in 2 inches. Oh, I don't have no lock on yet. Here, we'll do there. So quick, just basically, we didn't edit the screen. This is all our customizations are done in the dashboard. And so that is what, for Mach Motion, that is what we do, 100 machines a year. We have different interfaces for different machine types, but if I were running a mill, traditionally, we would not edit the screen at all. We would edit what these buttons do per machine, and we would change this whole panel out to configure exactly what that machine needs. So they had a conveyor on the machine, we would add a conveyor button. And to show you one more step as far as the no code thing, let's say I want to add I need a boost pump for my coolant. I can come into output signals and we'll enable output 20. I'm not going to even map it to anything, but you could. And we're going to call this boost pump. We heavily use the user descriptions. You see kind of the way we do things in Mach Pro. We name everything so that those names carry all the way through. So output 20, we just enabled and we gave it a user description of boost pump. Now I am going to come over here and I am going to swap out. We're going to edit this, configure this widget. And we have a manual mode button, which is right here, and we have a spindle brake. I'm going to change this out to be boost pump. What happened when we exited config is it created what we call a command. And that command it created, because the output signal was enabled, we created a command called boost pump, and we can either map this button to just make it off, or we can have a button that only turns it on, or we can use this toggle. So I'm going to hit OK. And now this says boost pump toggle. And if I go over to my service, we have, and I scroll down, here is boost pump. We didn't have to edit this screen. This is also a dashboard, and so it's dynamic. As soon as I enable a signal, it's there. And when I click on boost pump, you can see it's turning on the output. And I can go like, well, I don't like that label. So we can configure this button, and we can say boost pump, and I can do like a new line character to make it so where it'll take up two rows on the button. I don't know why my copy and paste is not working here. I got it. And let's say we don't want it to be green when it's on. We're going to pick a blue. Hit save. And now when boost pump is on, there we got a blue button. So we have also, if you were, I don't know how many of you guys actually got into Mach 3. There were these OEM codes where you could fire a single code. They were like, they started around maybe 100. I don't remember what the base layer number was, but they would go up. And you had all of these things that you could just do really, really easily. That is kind of the concept of commands. If you were to look in our commands, we have commands for homing, for dereferencing access, a huge, huge long list of commands, and anyone can create more of them. And then those commands can be mapped to a button or mapped to an operator panel or, our pendants. You can map any command to a pendant. So you can buy a pendant and it'll have, some buttons will have, features already defined. Other ones will be mappable buttons. And instead of you having to write code or anything like that, you can select. And you could have created your own commands that show up in the menu. So you can write some Lua script if you want, create a command, and then that command will show up inside our pendant menu, and you could map a button to your command you created. So it gives you the ability to really interface to so much more, and not be locked in, but also have a lot more options as far as no code things. So what we would love to hear is like, hey, if you're like, oh man, I really want to map these features to buttons that don't exist yet, most of the time, that's probably a 10-minute job for us to add those in. So we would like to add, we want to hear back from you guys on where are the gaps, for what you guys are wanting to see on Mach Pro. So for us, we feel like we're bringing to the industry something that we have done many, many machines on, and there is a way to do it, but we want to keep growing this and essentially make Mach Pro the best we can. So.
I mean, we want to see, so we're passionate about simple and modern technology. And we want to be able to see the CNC market go to the next level. And Keith, you introed us of how do we get the next generation into that. And I think there's been so much complexity in the past over, like so much work to get into it. And even the challenges that we're talking about of getting our machines ready. So we'd love to just turn it over to you guys of what, from your experience so far, what are the biggest gaps that we need to remove to make CNC simple so that people can have a simple interface, but still have it as a modern interface moving forward?
Well, if I may step in and ruffle your feathers a little bit there.
Please, that's why we're here.
I think this is all great if you have your system running or if you have the deep understanding that you guys have. But have you given it a lot of thought, like all the people transitioning from existing installations? How do they copy over all their settings for the Pokey or the ESS Smooth Stepper or whatnot? Because you probably go into the machine.ini and know that's line 7,390 to 8,000, copy it over and bam, it works. But for them, it probably is a tedious weekend or two just to, oh darn, what was that signal again? And I forgot to set the active low check mark or something. So I think before you go where you want to go, which I think is a great endeavor, make sure that you're not losing your customers in the transition to Mach Pro right now in the beginning. So maybe you have something there, but I think that's something that you should manage first, that you literally have, you can crank up the engine on your car before you install the detailed new stereo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, do you want to, our upgrade process, we have no automated process like that at all, Johannes, right now.
So as far as the machine INI, we do have some plans here to make it through the install process. You will be able to navigate and select your existing machine INI, and then we will use that will bring in all of your signals, all of your Pokey stuff. All of that will be the same. Your mappings won't get wiped away. And really what we will be only changing in the INI would be the interface things, so that it essentially applies the Mach Pro screen to your INI and our interface to your INI. Where I don't know exactly is as far as scripts. I don't know how many scripts are out there and what the best way to transition a lot of the scripts are. And I would love to hear more feedback as far as that. How many things have we already covered that you don't even need the old scripts anymore because we have a documented solution that's tested, and how many of those things are we missing that we need to be able to run the old stuff? But I think that's really the question I have on that.
Well, I guess customers will be quite forgiving if the main road is paved and you can get your machine up and you have that import agent or whatever you're going to call that feature, and your basic functionality is working again. Because people that do their full customized script, I think they will be able to figure it out. That's my personal opinion, and I'm not shy about these things, so I'm not worried about getting my settings over. But I think quite a few of your customers basically just want, I don't mind paying for a new license if it gets new features, but it should work kind of not out of the box, but without too much hassle setting it up. And then for the scripting, I think people will also try to embrace the new options that you have, and maybe we'll do things differently. And if I think about my own crazy scripts that I've written over time, you look at them 2 years later and you're like, darn, there's different ways of doing this better, or now with new options, maybe go away entirely. And that's one of the experiences I have had with Mach in the past, that you have different versions and options, and just look at the probing. You have a wizard for that. It looks a little different from which menu you call it, and in the Mach hobby you have that bore boss and find the middle XY axis point, and I think that's not all of that is implemented in the new one. You had the engraving wizard. There was an older version which could do multi-line. The latest version in the Mach hobby, I think, only had one line, and that's kind of what's the reason why you have these variants and why they offer different functionality, and maybe as a mid to long-term goal, define what you want to have there, and overall also maybe make sure that you have a decent, obvious, well-published versioning system that you really know, like, we are currently at the recommended install version so-and-so. This should go with your plugin, at least version so-and-so, because that interoperability also sometimes is the reason that things don't really work as expected. And just make that more transparent, more stringent, to make sure that users know what to do. And on the other side, also make sure that you're not changing things that the users are not aware. Like you're doing a production run, or you're relying on something and you just changed a tiny little bit, and then suddenly something breaks or doesn't work anymore. Because I think I've been using the ESS Smooth Stepper, and they always said, like, well, maybe you should use that and don't go to the latest version. And so it was always kind of, do I really want to do the upgrade? What's in it for me on the Mach side? What's in it for me on the plugin side? So that's kind of, I'll end my rant here.
Thank you for sharing. It's good. Anybody else?
I would echo a lot of what Johannes just said. I mean, having used Mach4 now for 4 or 5 years, and then Mach3, it's transitioning. As you and I have talked, Carl, we all have a mental model of how things should work or do work because we've been using them so long. And then there's this transition. Okay, you've changed terminology. Right now I've never used, I've always used the probing screen. The first thing most of us do, at least I do, is I probe Z to get my bit set. Right now it's a 3-click operation to find that probe Z button. I want that front and center because that's the thing I use every single time I start my machine. I've got a list of stuff, so I could probably talk all day long. I came from, as I've said before, Carl, I came from a UI UX background and product management. I was in software for 35 years, now retired, and so I look at things differently from a UI perspective. I always do a review of the UI and say, okay, what can I learn quickly? What's intuitive to me? What's not? And so I'm still, for example, trying to get my head wrapped around tool setter and auto setter, which I've never used before. And how does that change the way I work? Is it better? There's just a lot of little, as my Australian friends would say, a lot of little niggles that I'm trying to get my head wrapped around as I make this transition. I've tried 3 different PCs. Finally, I think I've got one that will work as far as right power, earth ground, all of that. And it's making this transition from something I've used for so long. I'm familiar with it. It's become intuitive because I've learned, and now I'm having to relearn some things because it's different, or its terminology is different. Placement's different. So again, maybe just echoing a lot of what Johannes has said is just there's going to be a transition period before I'm comfortable with it.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of little things. Keyboard. There's no, I have a little keypad that I've used, and I just bought an MPG pendant. But I can't use my keyboard, and I can't figure out why. You know, the
Do you wanna-
documentation says I can use the keyboard. The jogging dashboard has keyboard information in it, but I never get keyboard access. So there's a lot of little things like that. I'm trying to figure out, okay, how do I adapt or how do I get those things?
Dude, just to touch on that real quickly, like, I think we added the keyword plugin again. I think it was missing on some of the earlier installers.
We need to check on that, Trent, and make sure, but it's possible we haven't actually, like, it's not on the release build, that you can support the keyboard. So that was not on there at first. I know, we heard feedback from that in beta testing, and maybe that didn't get pushed to release.
Okay. That does raise a question, you know, as we continue to move forward, you know, what branch should we be using? Should we continue to use release beta?
For our
Rather
beta
than release
testers,
Release beta will get the most of the updates until we, you know, reach some sort of milestone where we're like, we're pretty happy with the software, and we'll promote that to release. So I would continue on release beta unless you want to avoid, you know, it should, I wouldn't even say instability, but whenever we first put things in there, you know, they'll first be released to release beta. So if you're hoping for some change or something like that, you should stay on release beta.
I mean, so the development branch, every night it runs, it automatically puts up the latest software. That is entirely untested. We try to not, like, you know,
Right.
it does happen that we break things. We're supposed to, in our development team, we're not supposed to put updates that break our machines. So like every morning we come in, we update our machines. They should all still run after the update. But it is untested, and sometimes the night before somebody did something that totally, you know, just messed up, and the whole system doesn't work now until we fix some little thing. So that is the development branch. On the other side of the development is the
That is here.
right there. And you know, every day, like, you can test and see exactly what you know, what the software is, or what we did yesterday. You would know what we did yesterday, right? It'll have our changes in it. What we don't have done yet, and we really, really need to, we understand that, is to be able to publish so you can see what changed between them. To even see if it's something you care about. And we have not come up with an automated process yet of doing that. Because the builds automatically are built and published, like that happens early in the morning, it is something we need to get to where the whole process can be automatic on that.
And then, so release beta is the one with testing. It's a candidate for release at this point. So if you want a latest feature that's been tested at some degree, they're here. And then release, these are going to be the full releases, just like I think the last official release of Mach4 was in 2020. So we're trying to move that up to quarterly, of actually having tested releases at least multiple times a year, starting up for this year, where we would have an official tested version that people could trust and know that it's going to be able to work.
And do we just install that over the existing package, or?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
yep, that's a
So
good
everything will
question. So
update.
you would install it over the same profile. And one of the biggest changes we've made is working towards, I think, Honeys, you talked about the upgrade process. So we're actually, when we do an update, if there are things that have to be done in the update, we're doing them automatically in the profile when we update. This is from one version of Mach3 to the next version. So there's all kinds of background stuff that's happening to set up that machine profile to work. And that basically means, though, if you have multiple profiles, you would have to run the update for the different profile, because it's only going to update the pertinent information for the profile that you're installing or for the machine type. But what other questions?
So what that mean, sorry if I step in here. Would that
Please.
mean that if I'm running 3 profiles in parallel, that I would need to do the installation 3 times?
To make sure that the upgrade process is right, that is what, yes.
All the
Okay.
settings are saved in the profile. And so an installation is really just for a single profile.
Okay, because that's probably been biting me in the back a few times. I'm actually using the M31 in parallel with the EtherCAT and with the StepDir. And now that you have provided it, also trying for the ESS Smooth Stepper. So good to know. Just takes a little time, and so basically use the installer, select the latest beta, and select the profile in the installation path, and that will
Yes.
update that profile with that name.
Yes, yep, and this
Okay.
is one of the mental models that you're talking about, Trent, that we've broken.
No, that's totally fine,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
actually
makes sense.
was one of my questions. So,
Okay.
well,
Well, what
as far
other? Go ahead, Trent.
I was going to ask about if I want to do a clean install, meaning I want to uninstall. It seems like there's a lot of data that's probably stuck in, those deep directories of Windows. Is there any way to make sure I've done a clean and uninstall? Like in app data, some of those folders.
So the package I mean, essentially you have the Mach folder, whatever you named your folder. Default is just called Mach for Mach Pro. And then the package manager, we're using a package manager called Chocolatey. It's an open source package manager. And if you wanted to start fresh, you would start with a new Mach folder. And then, Carl, do you want to show them in program data? If
So
you want to
basically, you would wipe your mock folder. Like what I do is I just rename it, just so I can always go back to it. And then
C program files, program data. I'm sorry, it's C program data, not program files. And that is often a hidden folder, and then go to Mach. And this right here, if you wipe this whole thing, that will wipe out all of the package manager history. It won't break anything. When you run the package manager, it'll reinstall it. It just won't know anymore. Yep, that's the package manager. It won't know what you have installed and what you haven't installed. And so if it doesn't see that you've installed the fonts, if it doesn't see the font package listed, it just takes a little bit longer to run. It's going to install the fonts and all the things. So we had an installer that was getting humongous to support all of the optional features. And we started over from that paradigm and went to a package manager so that we can, basically it'll look at your system and see what's installed, and it will download from the web from all these different sources the different things it needs to build up that system. So instead of having the installer, this massive installer we move around, the installer is a lot smaller, and basically it downloads, the NSIS installer that you go through and you hit next, that is one of the packages. But then there is a whole bunch of other packages that it installs alongside of that. And so what's cool about that is we can just upload a new package, and it doesn't change the installer. You can keep using the same package manager. You don't need to download that package manager every time. The package manager will query the server and figure out what packages are available, and then it will list them there.
So I just put it on my desktop. That way I can just run it again if I'm wanting to do another update.
Yep. So this guy here will, the packages that is live. Like we upload a new package, you can run your old package manager, and it will show the new package right there. It'll query the server and show that in the list. So as things go, we're going to add more and more into that. Yeah, go ahead.
Two quick things. Can you maybe pull that up that we can share the screen? One of the things I ran into in the beginning was that it takes quite a while to actually get an update of the available packages. So you start out with the demo and you forget to hit the refresh, and then you're installing the demo package and think you're on the release beta. or something. So maybe having an auto refresh or some reminder might be helpful for people not using that too often. And when you say for the clean install, you should manually remove that. Totally get it and fine for me doing it. But if you have control over the package installer, maybe you can have a check mark here, clean install or full install. So if somebody wants that, you literally just do a check mark here, and the package installer will do everything for you.
Good idea. Very cool. Very good. Well, I want to be sensitive of your time. Keith, anything that you're seeing at this point, that any gaps or changes that you want us to focus on?
No, because I've been really enjoying, because I've got answers to questions that I didn't think I needed to know or ask. But the same thing on the loader as well, because after I went on my trip and I came back, and I started getting some of the other components I was waiting on, so I could connect that M31 to the lead chart. I also was just trying to get a computer to recognize the M31, and I wasn't able to get the BSI loaded in to be able to verify connection.
Chad, we're getting a little feedback from you. Glad you have a mic. Do you mind muting for just a moment?
Yeah.
Sorry, Keith, you're good.
Okay. I just turned it down a little bit because I thought I was getting the feedback that way. So anyway, I wasn't able to get the BSI installed. But then we got the news of everything coming in. Now I didn't have Mach3. And I came in right when Mach4 was coming in, and I built my original set up to handle the first stages of Mach4. And I was pretty successful. I had a pretty good teacher that worked alongside. He's over in Minneapolis, and he's retired as well. But he watched my YouTube channel, and then he kind of we worked together. And that's exactly why I have schematics and everything else that I showed you that one day on my project and everything. And so my education is in the build as well. So I'm actually my whole career, I live for the build. And after it's built, then sometimes I'm off and I'm doing something else.
I have that same problem.
That's our life, because it's the challenge, and actually to be old-time machinist all the way up. I'd never had a computer or a cell phone before the year 2000, and everything I've done, I've taught myself. And of course, I've had help along the way, and I pay attention. So anyway, the loading down the process and everything else would be really well. Now today, and actually it's on the truck loaded. I just checked the routing, so I'm going to be getting the Altar 300 control coming in here, and I'm going to, when I get everything set up in here, is that going to give me because there's no instructions on setting up that kind of configuration. Am I just going as if it was my computer, or how am I going to be looking at controlling and downloading what I need in that unit?
Yeah, so any of the controls come pre-installed with the software, licensed, everything.
Okay.
If you're ordering the kit, I should say, you can't.
Yeah, I ordered the kit, even though it was another M31, which doesn't have to have a backup, and I just ordered the whole package all over again.
Okay.
And because I figure if it's coming as a package, then I like to open up a package and assemble the package, and we'll be on our way.
Yeah, so every control comes with the software installed, licensed, everything configured, your static IP configured for the M31, yep. All of that. So, yeah, we can follow up. Why don't, Keith, I can send you some more information on like the actual setup process, but basically the Altair is just an industrial performance grade computer.
Okay.
And it still is going to need a monitor, keyboard, and mouse.
Yep.
But it's the industrial computer that can run.
Well, that's great, because you saw how I built this in the table and everything else. So it's actually going to be self-contained. So it is going to be a nice unit. So, you know, even if,
Yes.
you know, when I close down the rest of the shop or whatever, this, my 3D scanner and my computers and my software and my Fusion, all of that stuff is, I mean, I'm going to play until I'm not. And that's it. Yeah. And, you know what? The only thing that I actually had to control on my Leachshire was my axis for the motors, correct?
Mhm.
And so I did pick up that adapter with the pigtail, and
Awesome.
so I'm just going to be configuring out that pigtail. And I believe at first I was bringing, because you're reading the plug outlet and then the ESS layout and everything else. So the signals are all going to the Leachshire through there, but the feedback for the connection for those signals is all through the grounds. So now I know that the grounds are going to go to a bus bar and then just tie those into the grounds coming from those leads out from the M31. Am I correct?
I don't know that I'm understanding the, are you talking about the step and direction commands?
Yeah.
Okay. So
That was the only concern that I actually had from my setup that I had here.
So depending on your step and direction control, like you've got differential, so step positive, step minus, direction positive,
Yep,
direction
yep.
minus.
Yep.
So those should be.
All
Go
of
ahead.
those, all the positives will go to the numbered pins, and then the negatives are return or connecting signals from the Leachshire, but that would be from all the ground pins coming back from what is it, 11 to 18 or something like that.
No, they are, so most, I would have to see what stepper drive you have. A lot of the
stepper.
the lead chimes, don't they have differential?
I think they do have
I think
differential.
they have 4 wires. So I think there's 2 wires for step and 2 wires for direction. Which is
Yeah,
where you
out
get
of
your
my
noise,
Leachshire there is, but the M31 to communicate is going through the DP25 pin, and I was just wondering where your negative leads coming off of your M31 are they just all tagging a common ground?
Okay, so all of the so if we're talking about on the M31 there where it says 0 volt, or does it say ground?
It says 0 volts.
So all the 0
0 volt
are all the same thing. They're all common. Yes, that is
Yep.
true. The step negative and the direction negative are not ground. They're actually a signal. It's a differential signal. So you basically have, it's like RS232, you can do a 2-wire, or RS485 would be 4-wire. You can essentially do serial, it's essentially the same communication over 4-wire. There's also differential, maybe RS45 is a bad example of that, but most of ours, we're using 4-wire for step and direction instead of just 2-wire. And that way you can run the cables long and you won't have any noise issues under standard setup. I'll say it's so much better than only using the 2-wire. So if you had a stepper drive that only had the 2-wire option, you would not do anything with the negative terminals.
Yeah,
The step minus would be
all my steppers are
unconnected.
my steppers are 4-wire.
Perfect. Okay.
And they're wired. The steppers all go to the Leachshire because it has the power to run my steppers.
Okay.
So the jumper, the DP25 adapter that comes in, which used to come in from my ESS on a ribbon cable. So I've had to interpret the pin configurations to find out which pins I'm connecting to the M31 negative side stepper direction. And
Okay. So yes, you're right. I mean, really, it should only be one ground that would need to be connected. But
Okay,
if you have
yeah.
multiple, you could connect them onto the 0 volt terminal in the M31.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. I was suspecting that, and
Yeah. No,
that's why I was thinking that you could take a common. I was going to go ahead and use my DIN rail and just set up a bridge. was just gonna set up a bridge like this so that I would be able to connect all the grounds from the DP pin to that, and then all the negatives back
Yes,
down to this, and then tag one to the 0 volts.
Yes, yeah.
The only thing I was wanting to make sure we communicated clearly is like the step negative and direction negative are not the same as 0 volt. So those are not tied together. But
Okay.
0 volt on the M31 is 0 volt on all the pins. They're all common. So you are correct. You can take your DB25 and where it would have been 0 volt, you connect all those together and tie them to one single 0 volt on the M31. That
Okay.
would be correct.
And I do see that is a common thing we see in the industry on lower end motion controllers, that they don't have support for the plus and the minus signals. So a lot of these drives, although the drive, like your lead shine drives, they'll just jumper all of the positive or negatives together to be able to make it a 2-wire device. But anytime you're running the 2-wire, you lose your noise immunity. So that is an ongoing thing that we see, people that just are losing position, aren't able to run consistently. So if you have a stepper, use your 4-wire interface, and then we recommend shielded cable. So you're actually grounding your shield there too for the best noise
Grounding
immunity.
to 0 volt or to earth ground,
Yeah.
either way.
Yeah, and actually I did even when I set up the lead shire directly, and all 4 of those motors going into those receptacles there, all the shields are all brought in together. I've soldered them all together, and I brought them to an earth ground.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Very cool. I know we are officially out of time. I would love to go longer because I feel like we haven't answered a lot of questions. So if you need to go, thank you for joining. If you have some more time, we could definitely stay on longer. I know some of you may need to go too, but we could go till another 30 minutes if you're interested.
I did have a few questions.
Chad, go for it.
All right. As far as handling external buttons, how do you all do that? Like cycle start button, feed hold, coolant, spindle buttons. Like I normally map them in.
I'll let you try.
No, go
I'll
ahead.
show you the normal way of doing that. So, kind of this is all tied together. You've got this button on Mach3, and when there are no alarms or warnings active, you've got this green check mark here.
So if I activate a limit switch on my M31 here in this demo, the light turns on and you can see the main alarm there at the top.
So this is called Global Monitoring System. This is all it's a plugin, but it's integrated at a number of different levels inside Mach3. This is the alarms that are set up. And so again, no code, I can show you briefly how we're going to do that. But if you have a low coolant, it will create an alarm dialog on the screen, and it will say coolant low, and then it'll show you, you can see these conditions. So coolant low is saying when the machine is enabled, if it's been enabled for 500 milliseconds, and input signal 4 goes low, or yes, is high. If I read that wrong, input signal number 4 goes high, that will create an alarm. So if we've been enabled for a half a second and input 4 goes high, that is what activates this alarm. Drive fault. If we've been enabled and input 100 is high, that creates this alarm. Tool setter, and so on. We also have a log, which is, we haven't had any alarms on here, but you can see history. There's a database that stores all of that, so you can see past alarms and be able to search for them and so on. So that is the global monitoring. This is like the output kind of side of the global monitoring, or maybe diagnostics, you could call it that. But it's under this button here. So we use the same interface for doing what we call process. So there are 4 different styles. You can create an alarm. You can create a warning. A warning won't stop the system, but you can't press, when you press cycle start and a warning is active, it won't it won't basically start your program. So alarms shut down the machine. If you are running, you get an alarm, that your machine, you're going to get alarmed, you're going to be disabled, and the machine's going to stop. So if your spindle's overheating, you know, whatever you want there. If you have something like lube low, lube is not necessarily emergency right away. You can, that is a warning. And I have options under warning to escalate to an alarm. Is it this one?
Escalate to an alarm.
Escalate to alarm. So you can have a warning that says after a certain amount of time, then I want it to turn into an alarm. So the warning dialog will count down to 0, and when it hits 0, it'll create an alarm. But let's say you have a, you know, lube low, and you could set an hour to that, and you're like, you know, if my machine runs out of lube for an hour, that's not, you know, for the slides, for the X and Y, that's not detrimental. It's not going to wreck my machine. So I don't want it to stop in the middle of a program per se. I'll get the warning dialog, and I can then pour lube into it while it's running, and it keeps on running. But if I'm gone and it's, you know, I don't fix the lube low within an hour, then it's gonna time out. So that is the idea behind alarms and warnings. What for a process? So I've got a button, right? I would hit this new, create a new message. And under action, I'm going to change this to a process. And I'm going to set up my conditions. So we're going to say when a signal, we'll say an input signal.
Use general input 0.
Use general input 0, okay. When that is high is the default, I will add this condition and then hit OK. And now I'm going to give this a title, and this is going to be external cycle start button. And then under action, I can do cycle start. There's a couple of these that are canned because they happen all the time. I could select cycle start, or I could do custom and customize. And I don't know, my feed hold was in there, but we could select run a command, and I could do any of these commands. So
What was the boost? Was it that you added?
yep,
Oops.
just hit B.
Look output test.
What did we call it? Yeah, I thought we did call it boost.
Coolant boost?
No, I would have thought that would have showed up.
Same profile.
It is
version Mach.
I expected to see boost in there.
You need one of the signals boost.
Yeah, I'm not seeing that. I don't know why. Let's hit.
So you could have a button for tool changers, like you can see all the functionality. You could have it change to this tool by putting a button on the machine. You could add a 0 all button here externally. Rewind button.
Probe Z.
Yeah. There you go. There's your probe Z button. So the probe Z trend, like we should be able to add that under the dashboard on the right. Like it should be able to add a probe Z button.
So, Trent, you were talking about auto measure. I can make a function button do the auto measure so that you don't have to switch screens on the over here on the right hand side in the dashboard. You can make a big, huge auto measure button if you use that all the time. Or right here, I just tied input 0 to auto measure. So the right here, run command auto measure when this happens. So now we can hit save. And if I go into the monitor, I will see I have an external cycle start button, and that actually is going to fire auto measure, is the way we have it configured right now. Can you go ahead and activate that input? Okay, so you can see this is running right now. This went green, which is how we debug it. And we got this pop-up, turn it off. So if I hit cancel, go ahead and hit it again. And as soon as we did that, it's waiting for a cycle start confirmation. So most of our buttons that cause motion, we do a cycle start. There is a way to make that so you don't have to confirm. But if I hit cycle start, then I can either hit like an external button, or I can hit this button to issue the tool measure.
Which I will say that has been one point of feedback that we're still trying to figure out how to apply. It feels like the cycle start interaction and the flow there is confusing, or it definitely breaks the mental model for Mach 3 and Mach 4, but it also is maybe not as intuitive as we'd like. We've had the reason why it's there is we've worked in a lot of machines where we wanted to make sure that when you press cycle start, everything was safe. So it was either a physical button on the screen or like a second check confirmation type of thing. We run all of our controls and always have with touchscreens, or almost always have. And with random touchscreen presses, you don't want your machine to take off. So that's part of why we've
So
tried.
like when you hit this button, it's doing the same thing. So normally, if I'm going to do a tool change, the U is not homed, but most of our buttons we configure to where there is a secondary confirmation. Yes, you want to do that. And cycle start is the kind of go button for that. You have it turned off right now, I think. So auto tool measure is a little bit different because you can do a range and auto tool measure. So I can select right here, I want to measure tools 1 through 8, and then hit auto measure, and then that's why you have this dialog, so you know which tool numbers you're going to be measuring. And this will do a tool change in between each one. And so if you have an auto tool changer, it would, measure maybe all the tools in your tool carousel or your wine rack.
But could you just go ahead and add the cycle start button just for clarity's sake?
So let's go back into there. We're going to change it to cycle start.
Yep.
So we're going to go back to Glory monitoring. I'm going to click on this guy, and for cycle start, I can just hit right here, and now that custom button option went away, and now this is a cycle start. I can hit save.
If you load a file.
Give a recent, probably not.
Use anything. Doing a tool change, I'm hitting cycle start again, so I'm just toggling the output on the M31, and now we're running. So if I were to, I think we have some alarms set up. So there I tripped my coolant low input, which is again just wired to or configured under the GMS.
So we can click on here and we can show active if we want to reduce the list down to the only ones active. And so you can see extra information. So now Mach is disabled, so that if I close this, like we're still in alarm state. So we can't run, but if I hit reset, that will reset the alarm. And then he fired it again. He just created the alarm again. But now we're up and enabled and running. And
so if I see this one here, now see that on the top right, if you hit cycle start, so I'm going to hit cycle start, it's going to say clear all alarms and warnings. So it knows that there's a fault.
It knows there's a warning.
It knows there's a warning. Yep. So I'm hitting cycle start. It's not doing anything. And it's saying my lube as well.
So again, warnings block starting a program, but they don't stop the program unless you have escalated to alarm set. So then I should be able to go here and see the log history, and here are the alarms that have happened in timestamp.
So one of the concerns we've heard and experienced too is just it's hard to know what happened and what was going on in the machine when something didn't work as expected. So we've added a ton of work in clarifying, logging, and trying to record the history so that we can more quickly, so that you as the user can more quickly understand what's going on. Chad, do you have other questions around that, or did that help?
No, that took care of that. I mean, a couple more things I had, but yeah, that's
Please.
pretty awesome. I like that. I run a lot of Haas machines. We got a Doosan that we run as well. The probing routine, Johanna said something about a while ago. In Mach 4, they had a good probing screen with different options. Are you all going to make something like that in MachLab, or is that something you're just going to let us handle?
So we have a, this is probably, yeah, it's not on here. I can't do a demo here. So probing has been one of those things that I would say I haven't been happy with what's been out there for a long time. What we are doing, you're going to try to bring up that interface?
Do you
We can. Yeah, I think everything's in there. You should be able to. You'll need to close down whatever you have running right now. So what we've done is we reached out to Bloom. Are you any of you guys familiar with Bloom as a probe manufacturer?
Yeah.
So
They're pretty good.
I tried Renishaw and Bloom. Renishaw didn't really want to work together. Bloom did. They gave me the rights to use their probing macros on every Mach probe. So here in the next couple months, we're going to be releasing. I mean, we've pretty well got it done. It's not 100%. We're in testing right now, but we will be so Mach Pro. And, you know, in a couple months here, will be released, including the probing interface is going to be the Bloom probing macros.
And actually, that is something we plan to push I mean, we would love beta testing feedback on that.
Like for beta testers, we will be ready probably in a week or two.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Because I was going to ask about the Renishaw routines, because that's what I'm used to, and I write custom macro probing routines for that. But yeah, Bloom's pretty
So
good.
we can run Renishaw.
Well.
I have not tested Renishaw recently, but you should be able to run if you configure Renishaw for a Fanic, you should be able to run them without any modifications. Steve Murphy has tested that, and I believe, I mean, he said he tested not too long ago, so I believe we're good there. If you ran into an issue, you'd let us know. But the Bloom ones will be included with no additional fee or anything like that. So the probing interface, we've made a visual interface. If you were to download the Bloom, they have like a Bloom Expert probing iPhone app or an Android app. And basically you can go through and configure, and then it'll give you like a G65 call for that probing macro. We've kind of done something that looks somewhat similar to the app. And what is really cool about probing for when we release this is just like you can do it on Renishaw. Currently, up to this time, everyone doing probing in Mach that I've seen has done it in Lua, which means you can't do all of the same probing routines in your G-code files. With the Bloom macros being installed on every Mach Pro in the future, you will be able to add. You can go into the probing macro on the interface, and you will be able to select, like I wanted to do, you know, a bore diameter, and then you configure it with a GUI, and then it'll show you the G code it's about to run, because it runs at just an MDI. That's what the probing macro is doing now. They don't run any Lua. The Lua only helps generate the string, the G code string to run. And so then you can be like, yeah, that's exactly what measured the bore, or zero on the board, you know, if you want to zero your fixtures, it does all of that in the Bloom macros. And then you can copy that and paste that right in your G code. Now, every time you hit cycle start, you know, especially if you have an auto tool changer or whatever, but you would put a probe in your machine, it would run over, zero on the board, do a tool change, put your other tool in, and then start cutting. And you're doing that within the program. So we are making it, and that's how you're running your hosses, I'm guessing, Chris. You're actually probing probably in the cycle to zero on the corner of a part or something like that. So we're going to be going in the future. It's not going to just be you probe with buttons on a screen. You're going to do the same exact probing in your G-code file using the Bloom macros. So that was the big push to get Macro B into every Mach Pro, so that it is much more of industry standard. You can do all of that. You can run, run that stuff. So, and there's no cost. So Bloom, you know, it has their logo on the screen on that page. That was kind of the partnership, is they're like, well, if you leave our logo on it, we'll give it all free, so that maybe some people buy Bloom probes through it. So
we're thankful for their investment in CNC.
Yeah, that's incredible. Because we've been looking at different probes. Because Renishaw is expensive. They're excellent, but they're expensive. So, yeah, I'm glad to hear that.
And you don't have
With
to use
that-
a blown probe, to be clear. You
Yeah,
can use
any
any
probe.
probe. But
Yeah.
like they are obviously, it has their logo, so they're trying to, and it's their documentation for their probe macros, and it talks about their probes and all of that. But you know, for us to try to write something comparable to what they're giving us would be a huge investment, and so this was a pretty good deal for everybody.
Yeah, because I looked at making my own macro probing routines to integrate into it, and I'm like, I don't want to get into that. That's just a lot.
Oh, wow.
So,
That's
so
a
I'm
lot,
glad
Chad.
you all are. I'm glad you all are doing that because I've got a bunch of custom macro or custom probing routines I use to do QC on our part, post and pre-machining. So I'm really glad to hear that.
Very cool. Well, any other final questions that you wanted to make sure that you asked, or just perspective of, hey, you guys need to focus on this or make sure you address this sooner than later or long term?
Kinematics, is that going to be something you all work on, or vital systems?
So kinematics,
So kinematics, I just realized I actually can show them this. If this will work, let me just try this 1 second.
So while he's logging into another control here. So kinematics is definitely something that we will be working on. We do not have it at this point ready for beta or anything. Do you want to just touch on where that fits in timeline wise?
So what we are working on, the largest project this year is the screen size is not right. So I guess that's not gonna work. But the largest project we're working on this year is a new planer for Mach. So currently we're running off a planer that was really, that's the one part between, Mach that's not really been rewritten. It's very similar to the Mach3 planer. And it really goes all the way back to the 80s, back to the project that like Linux CNC and Mach were originally branched from. And so the planer, we've been working with just a fabulous guy. He's kind of partnered with us as an advisor, and he has done planers his whole career. That's all he does. He works with Fanuc and Mazak and a bunch of big names helping with that. And so the new planner is going to be an S-curve planner, and it should take care of all of the CV issues. So the big difference between it and what we're running now, besides going from a trapezoid planer to an S-curve planer, is like on a Siemens or a Fanuc, or I don't know how Haas does it, but you'll be able to specify a tolerance and then program whatever feed rate you want, and the machine will slow down and it will stay within that tolerance. Instead of doing kind of what Mach4 does, is if I go to Mach4 and I command a 1-inch hole at 800 inches per minute, you will not get a 1-inch hole. It will basically be too small. When it runs that, it runs it, Mach will just go as fast as it can, and it ignores path deviation when it does that. The new planner will run, like if you're running Fanuc, you can basically open up so your margins are big, or you can say, I want to run really tight, and you give it a tolerance, and it will slow down to maintain the tolerance. So you won't round corners outside of that tolerance. You won't deviate from the path at any point more than that tolerance.
So I mean, in simple terms, it means much smoother motion and more accurate parts.
Yes.
Than what we've ever had in the Mach3 or the Mach4 world.
So the reason why that has come before 5-axis is just about all the 5-axis stuff runs with S-curve, because you often have head on head, and linkages that need smoother acceleration. And trapezoid planers create too much resonance on the machine. The head shakes doing movements, and so 5-axis needs really smooth and controlled motion like that. So this year the plan is to beta testers should be seeing our goal. It could change, but our goal is to be out by midsummer, having the first version of that out. And then we're going to work on high speed after that on the same planer, which would be the second half of the year. So the first half of the year will be more traditional G code. Second half will be targeting being able to do high speed, more like mold making in the same planer. And then next year, we are hoping to tackle the kinematic side, which will be built on top of the new planer. So yes, it will be coming. Timeline, it really depends on how long the planer really takes to get solid and get that done. A lot of the work for the kinetics has already been done. That is a project Steve spent months on, like 2 years ago, laying a lot of the groundwork. And so we're running on that groundwork. Everything we're doing, dealing with emotion, we are, how is this going to fit into 5-axis? That continues to be, part of the plan. But we're still ways out, I would say, on having, the inverse kinematics into Mach, but it is coming.
Awesome. Glad to hear it.
Well, thank you all. I know there are more questions. We'll have to do this again, but we appreciate your feedback, and yes, keep it coming. Like, you have our email. You can just shoot emails over of what other changes you want to see. But we appreciate all your efforts, your testing. I mean, you guys were the first beta testers with Mach Pro, and we appreciate it.
Which
Hey,
email
thank you,
address should we use for feedback?
At this point, we're still formalizing a more formal process, but I would just submit it to support, and we'll channel it from there. So support@machlabs.com, mach-labs.com.
I did order a pendant, and it was real easy to set up, so that's ready to go on mine as well.
Awesome.
Even got some of the buttons programmed.
Oh, good job. Yeah.
You guys got my
Yeah,
head swimming right now because I'm just a reefer tech, and you guys are all CNC, and I'm like, ah. So, yeah, I appreciate all the help.
Quick question about the probe, because I got mine too. I set it up on my laptop, which is not connected to anything. I noticed that it's showing machine coordinates. Is there a way to change that to part coordinates?
For the
So,
probe?
yep, there's a button on the, I don't know if I shut Mach down. I'll reopen mill. There's a button that you can toggle between machine and part right under the DROs.
But the pendant is showing machine coordinates.
Oh,
It shouldn't be.
is it possible that your machine coordinates are the same right now? You're saying the DRO
No.
display of the pendant is showing machine coordinates?
Yeah, I'll have to play with it more when I get this new machine set up. But it looked like it, regardless of toggling between the two, the pendant was always showing machine coordinates.
Yeah,
It
I didn't
should,
take notice
I've
for that.
It should be always showing part coordinates, and I don't think toggling will change it. Yeah, there's no option for that. I have to look into that.
So we're talking about with this checked, so where you're displaying the axis positions on the handheld pendant, is it showing? So I guess we can look into that. Trent, if you confirm that that's how it is, let us know. It should be
Okay.
part coordinates.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you
All right,
guys.
so when can I see keyboard plugged in?
I mean, I can for sure say by the end of this week. I will have Graham check on this, and hopefully tomorrow though. So what we've done is, we've essentially tied the on-screen jogger to where the jog rate and whatnot. On the on-screen, you can select a couple different views of that, and the jog rate actually changes the jog rate in the keyboard jogger. So go to the simplified, Carl, or what's the one? What's the name of it, Graham?
Hit that.
Light maybe?
No, it's keyboard.
Okay, so if you select the keyboard option, hit save.
Don't hit.
Well, you would use hit keyboard, you would hit that, and then you can select which mapping you want to go over. I think, yep. So, well, that's if you want to use keys to increment the rate up and down. So probably most people are only going to do axis. The axis would be the standard, probably. Hit save there. And now what you have is that knob right there controls your keyboard jogger speed. So that's what we're kind of doing. On the traditional keyboard jogger, you would use there was another way you would select jog rate or select whether the keyboard jogger was an incremental or step. And so if you're using keyboard, this is kind of the intended way for that to work. Go to plugins and see if keyboard is enabled. It wasn't there. Okay. It's not even.
So it hasn't been pushed. So
Okay.
it's not.
So we just need to include the plugin in the installer is really, we've tested this, but this becomes the interface for the keyboard jogger is the way you want to think about it. So when he just hit step, when he's changing the step size there, when you hit the keys on the keyboard, that is the mode the keys on the keyboard are going to be in. So that's the integration between the two.
All right, thank you.
And you could make keys, those other options like the axis selection or any of those other ones, you could assign additional hotkeys. So if you wanted to have a hotkey for up and down on the jog rate, when you hit the up and down hotkey, it would make that slider move up or down. That was the additional option. So, but most people just map arrow keys is what I've seen. They normally just map the arrow keys and 2 keys for Z. And so, anyhow.
Well, stay warm, and thanks so much for your help.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Take
Thank you.
care, guys.
Yeah, bye.
Take care.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
All right.